You've seen them everywhere, right? On top of a fancy brunch, mixed into your favorite salad, these little microgreens pack a huge nutritional punch. But what's really going on behind the scenes? Well, it turns out there's a world of incredible science packed into every single one. Today, we're going to uncover that precise technical journey, all the way from a tiny seed to a perfect nutrient-packed harvest.
So take a look at this. This isn't just a farm in the traditional sense. Nope. This is really a fusion of biology and technology. It's a highly controlled environment designed from the ground up to create the absolute ideal conditions for life. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how it all works.
All right, so where does this whole journey begin? It all starts right here, with the seed. Now, I know, it's so easy to just overlook something this small, but you have to understand, each one is basically a self-contained powerhouse. It's like a miniature biological machine already preloaded with everything it needs to kickstart its life. This kind of abstract visual really gives you an idea of just how complex a seed is on the inside. I mean, before it even touches soil or water, there are 3 critical parts inside, all working together in perfect harmony. So let's break them down.
Okay, first up, you've got the embryo. This is the absolute core of the whole thing. It's literally the complete blueprint for the future plant. Just waiting for the right signal to spring into action. And inside, you've got the tiny first root, the first stem, and the first leaves, all packed in there.
So if the embryo is the blueprint, what powers it? Well, that's the endosperm. I love this analogy. Think of it as the seed's perfectly packed lunch for the journey. Seriously, it's just loaded with all the starches and proteins it needs to fuel that first critical burst of growth, before it can actually start making its own food from sunlight.
And finally, wrapping this whole package up, you have the seed coat. This is basically the plant's natural armor. It's this tough, protective shield that guards that delicate little embryo and its food supply from, well, everything. Physical damage, pests, you name it. It handles all kinds of environmental stress.
Okay, so you have this perfect little machine. How do you flip the switch and turn it on? The answer is germination, and it happens in 3 key stages. First up is what's called imbibition, which is really just a fancy way of saying the seed takes a big drink of water and swells up. That triggers step 2, enzyme activation. This is the wake-up call, where that packed lunch of starches gets converted into usable sugars. And then finally, the radical emerges. The first tiny root breaks out, ready to anchor the new plant.
All right, the seed is awake. Now what? Well, now it needs the perfect environment to really thrive. And we're not just talking about sticking it in some dirt. No, we're talking about building a 5-star, all-inclusive resort for these plants, where every single detail is meticulously controlled.
Let's start with the basics. Temperature. There's a real sweet spot, a kind of Goldilocks zone, right between 18 and 24 degrees Celsius. If you go any colder, growth just slows to a crawl. But if you go any warmer, you're basically rolling out the welcome mat for mold, and you end up with weaker plants. So yeah, precision here is absolutely key. And it's the exact same story with humidity. The target is a relative humidity somewhere between 40 and 60%. Why? Because too much moisture in the air, that's an open invitation for all sorts of fungal diseases. But too little, and the plants just dry out and get stressed. It's a really delicate balancing act.
Here's one you might not think about: airflow. It's so critical. A gentle breeze does way more than you'd imagine. I mean, it keeps the temperature and humidity nice and even across the whole crop. It stops water from condensing on the leaves, which can cause problems, and it even makes the stems physically stronger. It is absolutely a non-negotiable part of creating that perfect climate.
Okay, so the climate is dialed in. Now it's time to add the energy, and that comes from light. But here's the cool part. It's not just about making things bright. It's about literally speaking the language of plants, using different colors of light to send them very specific messages about how to grow.
You say plants respond totally differently to different wavelengths of light. Blue light, for instance, in that 400 to 500 nanometer range, basically tells the plant, hey, stay strong and compact. But then you have red light over in the 600 to 700 nanometer range, and that sends a completely different message: grow fast, build mass. So a good full-spectrum light gives them a nice, balanced conversation.
And the volume of that light conversation, well, that's its intensity. And in this world, it's measured in something called photosynthetic photon flux density, or, yeah, just PPFD is easier. For most microgreens, the sweet spot, not too dim, not too bright, is somewhere between 100 and 300 on this scale. Getting this number right is absolutely critical for healthy photosynthesis. And finally, believe it or not, plants need to rest, just like we do. The photoperiod, or light cycle, is basically their day-night schedule. Giving them a cycle of about 12 to 16 hours of light provides all the energy they need to grow, and then that's followed by a period of darkness to recover. It actually prevents them from getting stressed out and exhausted.
Okay, let's recap. We have the seed, we've dialed in the climate, we've got the light just right. The final piece of the puzzle is the foundation. What are they actually going to grow in? And this choice is huge because it really impacts everything from water availability to nutrients. The overall health of the roots depends on it.
So you basically have two main choices here, and each one has its own pros and cons. First, you've got coco coir. It's made from coconut husks, and it's fantastic for holding on to water while still letting air get to the roots. Plus, it's a really sustainable choice. On the other hand, you could go with a traditional soil mix. That can offer more nutrients for sure, but it also comes with a much higher risk of contamination if it's not sterilized perfectly.
And this is what happens when you bring it all together. When you combine all of that science, the seed biology, the super precise climate control, those specific light recipes, and the right foundation, this is what you get. A perfect, dense, incredibly healthy harvest. And the real beauty of this system, it can be done anywhere in the world at any time of the year. You're completely independent of whatever the weather is doing outside.
So what's the big takeaway here? What we've just walked through, it's about way more than just growing a tiny plant. It's really a glimpse into a system that gives us almost complete control over our food production. And that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? As this kind of technology becomes more advanced and more accessible, are we looking at the future of how we grow our food?